He's South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus Farrow. He's Chris McCarthy. We are still joined by Ted Nesi from Channel 12 WPRI. Ted, thanks so much for joining us. We're having a lot of fun here.
Yeah, the man who came to dinner, you can't get rid of your house.
No, we really enjoy it, Ted. We really do. And I know our people at home watch you on Channel 12 and watch the Newsmaker program. And
God bless them.
I think a lot of them realize you and your wife, Kim, just had a baby.
We did. Samantha is 6.5 months old. She'll be 7 months on the 26th. I think my wife, well, maybe Samantha too, are listening right now. Samantha's not as interested yet in politics, but she'll get there. But yeah, I'm a first-time dad, and it is, it's all the corny stuff is true. It's like the most amazing thing. It is life-changing, and my wife is just unbelievable. I mean, Kim, as we mentioned earlier, Kim's an anchor on Channel 12 as well.
Right,
I mean, I don't know how she does it, to be honest. But yeah, it's great. And it gives me a good, it's one thing I didn't realize was how much it was kind of nice to go through a camp, as exhausting as it was to have a newborn in a campaign the last couple months. It also did put the daily BS in perspective.
Sure.
You get home and you have some, candidates yelling at you all day in campaign manner. You guys know how it is. And then you get home, you have this little cherubic face who's happily cooing and laughing with you and does not care that, candidate so-and-so's person says your headline on their fundraising wasn't quite what they thought it should be,
Right.
So it is good. It puts things in perspective. But yeah, it's definitely, it's a lot to have a newborn in a jam-packed job.
And your wife, Kim, is now hosting the 4 o'clock.
She is, yep.
Which was a new addition over there at Channel.
Yep,
I think
we
a very
added it
needed.
In 2020. It's like during COVID. Because, you get people, I mean, some listeners probably remember when we only did like a 6 and 11 o'clock news, right?
Exactly, right. Yes, I do.
And now we calculated more hours of the day than not now between the morning show, the noon, the now 4 to 6:30, and then 6:37's on Fox Providence, and then we do the 10 to 11:30. And some of it's just that, it's interesting, not to talk shop too much, but how television has changed. I mean, back in the day, you think of let's talk about the competition at NBC.
Yeah.
Thursday nights when back in the 90s, right? You have Friends and Seinfeld and ER. Boy, that was like a rocket ship for your 11 o'clock news. Everyone's watching primetime.
Yes.
Well, now, unfortunately, primetime is not what it was because everyone's streaming. And what you really want is live programming. And local news is live, right?
Yes.
You want to see 10, 10:30, 11, 6 o'clock, whatever, 4 o'clock when my wife's on. What's going on? What's happening? It's new. It's fresh. It's current. And so you've actually seen, in a way, I would say a strengthening of local TV news, or at least compared to what it used to be, where primetime was king. I mean, there's reports NBC might give up 10 o'clock.
Really?
And give it back to the local stations, which hasn't been the case since like the early 50s.
No, absolutely.
So it's just interesting how all that's changed. So we've tried to beat. I mean, they get a great number at 4 o'clock. And Kim and her team on the 4 o'clock news have really tried to have a different format from the other newscasts. She does a lot of live Q&As. She has people in.
Yes.
We've had people from New Bedford in and Southeastern Mass.
That's the thing. You guys really cover New Bedford.
Yeah, it's important. And I think, too, it's also, obviously I care about Southeastern Mass in part because I'm from here. And,
right.
I care about the place as a hometown boy. But also, as we've seen the shrinking of, unfortunately, the print news outlets in Southeastern Mass, in Rhode Island, I think there's an obligation for the television, for all not just you guys too. Like, look what you're doing at night. Broadcast news outlets to try to step up their game a bit. And frankly, there's just more demand for it because people aren't finding news in as many other places. I mean, we were talking before we went on the air tonight, you think of what the Standard Times, and it's not, they work really hard with a limited staff now, but years ago, how dominant they were, how impactful they were. The Providence Journal had, I don't know if they had foreign bureaus. They certainly had Washington bureaus and all sorts of people. Tim White's father won a Pulitzer there.
Correct.
For investigating Richard Nixon in the 70s. So as the revenue situation has changed at these papers, I think we need the remaining news outlets to step up. And we have really tried at Channel 12 to try to fill some of those gaps, both in Rhode Island and in southeastern Mass.
So both the radio and the television have been lucky in the sense that we're able to fill the gap, and the people at home do get a good product out of it. But the loss of the print is terrible.
It is. I mean, we're all three of us are news junkies,
Right.
and there's a reason I never allowed myself to be converted into a full-time traditional television news reporter, because I love the depth you can get.
Absolutely.
In the end, and I do love doing TV, and like it reaches more people, and there's such power to visuals. But at best, I'm usually only going to get 2 minutes.
Yes.
And to try to recap some big policy debate or a huge campaign issue in 2 minutes is extremely hard. And you're never going to get to the depth you can get to in an 800, 900,000 word article. And one nice thing is that we all have websites now. And so I know you guys put up lengthier articles when things pop up here at WSM. We certainly do a lot at WPRI. So I've always wanted to maintain a foothold in being able to write sort of print-ish articles for the website along with my TV responsibilities, because it's funny as a guy who pays my mortgage on television, but I just believe the written word is just such an important way to convey news, especially things that are complex.
I mean, I typically, with a lot of my interviews, I put them out on the website afterwards with a little bit with a little article, because it just increases the exposure so much, because then it gets run elsewhere and people look at it, and that's how they learn about those interviews that are had, and they learn about the program and all of that. So
I came from print originally, and
where'd you work in Brad? I didn't know that.
Yep, I worked at the Standard Times.
Oh, I didn't know.
And actually owned a newspaper at one time.
You're kidding.
I swear to God, no. I owned a weekly paper out in the Freetown.
That's how you got rich.
The Washington
That's why
Examiner.
you're a millionaire. Yeah.
It's one of my first. Right?
He owned the Washington Examiner.
I owned the Washington Post. So
The Washington Star. Yeah.
But I always remember that someone referred to it as the first draft of history.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really is.
Yeah.
The written is the first draft of history. And we can do a lot over here, and you could do a lot over there with your websites, but I don't know. It's just not the same.
You know what else you miss is, and I was thinking about this the other day, one of the promises of a paper when they were better staffed was every day this wad of paper is going to drop on your doorstep. It's sometimes the afternoon, like at Sun Chronicle when I was growing up, it was still an afternoon paper,
Times,
right?
afternoon
Okay.
paper, yeah.
But it's going to hit, and a bunch of people will have tried to summarize the most important news, local, regional, national, depending on the paper, of the last 24 hours. And there was a responsibility to get all of it in there. Of course, it wasn't perfect. Of course, stuff was missed, but that was the goal.
Right.
And I have plenty of friends in newspapers now who say, we don't pretend we're comprehensive anymore. We can't be. We don't have the people. And on top of that, even when they are trying to do that, the circulation has declined for print, especially because the website's not the same. You go to the website, there's articles everywhere. You can't tell what's new. You can't tell what's old. There's a finiteness. You can turn every page of a newspaper, and you get to the end, and you said, okay, that's what those people thought I should know about today.
Right.
And there was something to that.
Yeah.
Just for people who aren't like us, who aren't news junkies, who just want to be informed. Say, okay, they're going to print out the news, give it to me each morning. I'll feel informed. I'll get what they do, and we'll do it again tomorrow. There aren't many places anymore that convene as many people to the same set of facts, and I just wonder about the long-term implications of that.
It's a huge thing. I remember, of all the people, Howard Stern once did a whole bit on the New York Times saying, look at the New York Times, and the people in his audience were saying, "Oh, that's New York Times." But he said, "No. Do you realize how much it takes to get all that news, all the people around the world? I mean, you look at what the Wall Street Journal puts out, things like that, to have all that worldwide news. But it does create a cohesive community around it, right?
Yeah,
and we're losing that.
The Times the other day had, we all have seen all these news reports out of Iran. But I'm busy enough with Rhode Island and South Massachusetts. I'm not following every update in Iran, nor am I an expert. Well, I clicked. They had a good headline on their update the other day.
We have a lot of Iran experts in the audience.
Yeah, well, they just call in and fill me in. And they just had this the Times had this really well done, they had the recent news, they had the context, and it's just... And, it was kind of what I needed as a person who would like to know what's going on there, but I'm not going to consume every iterative update.
Weren't you in the New York Times? Wasn't WPRI in the New York Times recently?
We've been in there a number of times. Yeah, one of my wife's, again, I told you I didn't make any attack ads. My wife, Tim White, made all the attack ads this year, Kim. But she did an interview with a candidate who was accused of carpetbagging, which was prominently...
Salient issue right now.
Yeah, right, which was prominently featured in an overall New York Times look at, is carpetbagging still as big a problem as it was? That was, I think, the most recent time we got a big hit in the end. Oh, and Corey Welch one of our great photographers had a picture on the front page
Oh, that's
of
big.
Women Magazine or from our debate at PPAC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's big.
So the Times really leans on WPRI, and we do our best to help them. Obviously,
You're carrying them.
Actually, I want to ask you a question because you used to work there. I was in, so sometimes for work, I have to go up to like the Rentham area. And so I was driving through Attleboro and I saw
God's country.
Yeah, God's Country. I saw the Sun Chronicle building, right? And so it's still the big letters, the Sun Chronicle with the little sun, the face on it. So here in New Bedford, we know about what's happening in Gannett, right? And all the layoffs they have with the Standard Times and all that. And we see your calls online. We'll get to them in a minute. And the Standard Times building over, like it actually, that lettering got taken down.
It did.
It got taken down.
Yeah,
they took the sign down. So and the Sun Chronicle still has an editorial board. They endorsed Mayor Heroux for sheriff, and they made other endorsements. How are they still able to sort of survive?
Well, one thing is that ownership. I still talk like I'm still it was all those years ago, but the Sun Chronicle was owned by a company out of Kenosha, Wisconsin, that owned like us, a Buffalo TV station, and then a bunch of stuff in Wisconsin. It was some deal in the 70s or something that a prior owner had done. But they were classic small family media owners who let the paper, do its thing within reason and took care of it. And then when the Sun was put up for sale, then Gatehouse, now Gannett, wanted them, and they were out. They went with a different buyer, an outflow, the old Journal Register company that owns some other stuff in Rhode Island. And I think again, it's hard. My old editor and I still talk. Craig Borges up at the Sun Chronicle. It's not easy still to run a paper there, but I do get the sense from him that on the list of potential owners you could have at the moment, he feels like they did pretty well. It's also it's a really good looking paper. I always felt that way. Like the color printing is really good in the Sun. It might sound silly, but like it looks nice every day. That makes a difference. And then they work hard. They've kept people for a long time. Dave Linton, the crime and courts reporter up there. Dave's been doing that a long time. George Rose been covering Attleboro since it was founded.
Forever.
Just kidding, George. Yeah.
I remember when he was in Taunton. He covered me in Taunton when he was on Freetown. But then he went over there.
Yeah.
But that was in the 90s he went over there.
Yeah, it's just, they just, I think the gobbling up of, Gannett, and again, I'm not, I'll hold my words on Gannett overall, but I'll just say, nearly all of our dailies now in southeastern New England are owned by that company.
Yes.
Yeah.
And its predecessor, Gatehouse, beforehand. And I just think, looking at the facts without even opining, it is hard to feel that they are being well stewarded. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. 508-996-0500. Good evening.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. I used to work at the Boston Globe in the press room at Morrissey Boulevard in Dorchester.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
So, and I have a family history of it, too. And I noticed through the years it's changed so much. Back in my grandfather's day, they would barely have a home. They were printing 4 or 5 editions a day.
Yes.
Yep.
Worked weird schedules, stuff like that. As time went on, they were printing less papers. And then when my time came along, I noticed the internet came and the New York Times decided to put the papers online for free.
Right.
And that seemed to kill the newspaper even more. So basically now, if you were talking to my uncles, they would just tell you the newspaper's a dying business, and they'll be very lucky if they see retirement.
Now, do you remember Tim's father used to talk about at the Providence Journal building where they were printing the paper in the building, how the newsroom would shake once the old presses started. I'm sure that was the case at Morrissey Boulevard, right?
Yeah, Morrissey Boulevard wasn't underground. The one in downtown Boston was underground.
Ah, okay.
But my father told me stories of that. The old timers used to talk about it. They used to hear trains rumbling and all sorts of stuff. It was a fight. You were trapped down there. Same thing with the old Herald, Record American, all those. I had family that worked in those businesses too. But
my grandmother in Attleboro, actually, she might have worked with your relatives because she was when she got out of college, she was in the classifieds department at the Boston Globe until she got married. So
really? She has all those old papers that you're always posting.
Right.
Yeah.
What's his last name?
Her last name Lee. Well, now it's Lee. It was Fisher back then. Yeah.
We wouldn't know because we were the press room. So press room is strange planet compared to the other planets.
Yeah, I think she was on one of those old switchboards or something in the 50s.
You worked with Butchie Doe, right?
She would think the pressmen were weirdos. I mean, that everybody in that building thought the pressmen were weirdos. We were an odd group of men, and it has mellowed down quite a bit. But I can tell you stories from the old days that there was, I mean, sex, love, drugs. They even got prostitutes in the shower one time.
We're a family show,
Wow,
Paula. We're a family show.
No, it's after 8.
Right, come on.
We got to keep the ratings up, boys.
That's true.
A lot of drinking and drugs on the job, unfortunately.
Now I know why there were typos.
Angel dust?
Now I know why typos, yeah.
But, yeah, that's my experience and stories. My experience was the job burnt me out, but it wasn't a hard job, but it was a lot more. There were a lot more improvements by the time I came along compared to what my grandfather and father had to go through, and uncles. And
improvements in the paper or the drugs?
Probably the drugs are probably better back then. The technology got better as far as the presses and stuff like that.
Don't worry, it's all legal now.
Yes, that's true, right?
All right, I say no more, gentlemen. You have a good night.
Thanks for the call. We
Thanks.
appreciate it.
That's great.
Let's actually hit the break now. We'll be right back.
I've even got Marcus now. Marcus is even telling Joe McCarthy stories now.
I am telling
Yeah.
Joe McCarthy stories. That is true. Hey, 508-996-0500 is how you can get in the program. I think we've actually got a special surprise guest on the line.
Oh, boy.
Hello,
I don't know about special, but surprise for sure.
Senator Mark Montigny. How are you?
I don't know what you mean by surprise. I'm a pretty regular caller.
Senator, how you doing?
Who's that?
Ted
Ted
Nesi.
Nesi.
Oh, man. I was thinking of Jim Cramer every time anyone calls in there, and you know they're scamming half the time. Like, for a long time, listen to first-time caller.
Yeah.
Same thing with Howie Carr. They're so full of it. They, like, disguise their voice and somehow get through. You know? Well, should I buy FTX? Wow. You guys are having fun. This is an interesting show. I think I should hang up and just listen.
Rare to hear a politician say that.
That is rare, very rare. Mark's a rare guy.
That's what my mother said that to me my entire life.
Mark, what's the biggest issue in your district? I can't have a senator on the line not ask some news question. What's going to be the biggest issue for your district next year?
The biggest
Yeah.
issue in the district is the speculation on when I'd retire. Which,
A perennial.
and I tell people the same thing that Billy Baldy used to tell them. I will be retired due to illness when the voters get sick of me.
Oh, that's a good. Oh, I hadn't heard that one. That's a good
That's
line.
good.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
actually,
I
that
mean,
might be.
If I had known,
Mark, that might be a column tomorrow.
I would never have attributed.
I was going to say, you should have given it to Bulger. I would have.
My creative thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Gone around quoting you.
Yeah.
Lots of good stuff. I don't like to highlight one issue really, because then I'll have 15 people call in and say, he's so full of it. He told me last night the most important thing on earth was X.
Well, you're giving away the game anyway now.
Right.
I mean, I think for us, it's a lot like the rest of the world, except things get a little exaggerated. For us, obviously, I mean, people are living in a very tough inflationary environment, as you know. And although we've got some really interesting counter trends with commuter rail coming and with, I don't want to say post-COVID because we're still embroiled in it. We should all be pretty careful and mindful of that. But post-COVID urgency, what we're discovering, of course, is something, or I should say some are discovering. I think most of us have lived it that are in the neighborhoods every day. Folks have discovered they don't need to be in the insane city of Boston paying far more for everything than they should and dealing with horrible traffic when they can live right down near Buzzards Bay and have better coffee shops and restaurants that are every bit as good or better since they buy all our scallops and truck them up that way. So, we've got some interesting challenges. I never thought I would deal with phone calls talking to me about gentrification and these kind of housing issues. In fact, I remember when the city councilor several years ago said it, I'm thinking like, wow, that's a problem that we have been pleading for. And then when you start to actually live it and listen to the struggles of people, which I do every single day, you realize, no, yes, there's great news when you can develop this kind of cultural centers we have and wind energy and the industrial park has got no land available other than the new piece that we have. So good problem to have, except if you're in a apartment and struggling working two jobs and all of a sudden somebody raises the rent 50%.
Right.
So I think, I don't want to necessarily rank problems, but it's a huge problem.
Funny, though, that's what we were talking about in the first half of the show, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That housing is going to be a huge issue for the new governor.
Yeah, for sure. I confess that I was not listening until the last few minutes of fun. That's what got me to call in. See, you have to understand, I've been in a long time. I know that if I call in when there's a light mood, it's less likely that I'm going to get slammed by one of these.
That's true. That's smart.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
By the way, jokers, I don't mean listeners.
He means
how I
Marcus
end up
and I.
retired due to illness. I mean jokers, the liberal and the conservative, who you would hope would just pound on each other and offset, and we'd all end up somewhere in the middle.
That's our goal, Mark.
The wishy-washy middle.
So, Mark, what do you think the governor is going to run with this year? Do you have any sense yet?
Well, I mean, is that a trick question? You know exactly. You're reading the same things that I read.
We thought she would call you and tell you. You're powerful senator.
Right.
You can wait and listen to the inaugural speech. I'll be in the audience. Where will you be?
I might go.
I might comment. I might be very willing to have a bank of microphones in front of me.
Get the video from Boston.
I'll go. I'll bring. Do we have a microphone? Yeah, we have a microphone.
We have a microphone.
I'll bring a microphone.
It doesn't work. But we have
doesn't work. You can just pretend to talk into it. We'll take pictures.
Do you guys still use microphones?
When they work.
Well, the last time, I miss being in the studio. It's time now. These phone calls have got to end.
Well, we've been asking, Mark. We've been asking.
No, wait a minute. And there's been times I've asked you, and then you come on, you got 47 guests. During a primary where there's little.
Not everybody has the luxury of running unopposed.
They have had you in multiple times. You got a challenge.
Well,
right, exactly.
Maybe I'll run. I'm just kidding.
We're never guaranteed that. But if we bust our butt during the 2 years, we have a better chance. And I don't rest until the papers are due at 5, and then I rest for a day, and I get back at it. Is that what I'm supposed to say?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
I think Billy Bolger would be proud.
That's a nice canned response.
It's also true. But you never, as you know, kidding aside, it doesn't matter what you do, how much you think you've done, how responsive you are. And we are. No one can say otherwise in the constituent stuff and a bunch of other things. But that doesn't guarantee anything. You plan for it every single time. That's why I keep money in the bank and try to keep the team fresh. But it is better to continue to legislate than it is to be doing 18 hours a day, as I've been through in a campaign, and I'll do it again if I have to.
Well, all right. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for joining us, Mark.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
You're going to get rid of me that easily?
Well,
you guys have fun. Honestly, it's been enjoyable.
Well, your challenger just called in for 24, so you want to get to that call.
I will be ready.
Yep. We got Council President Abreu on the line.
Wow.
So listen, one thing I do want to do, I'll come back in the next couple of weeks, because I know you had some thoughts on Title V and some of the things we're fighting there, and some other things. So we'll do it on a more serious occasion. But I'm going to listen, so I hope you guys pound on each other and have a little bit of fun.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, that is the big issue. We've had some stories here about the Title V stuff in Massachusetts. It's a real cost.
I actually learned about it watching WPRI.
Did you?
Yeah, the health director, Chris Michaud, who he was on.
That's right.
He had a public meeting, and I'm like, I should have him on the show.
Yeah.
And then Tim had the same thought. Tim Weisberg had the same thought. So he came on my show, our show, and then came on with me, and then he came on with Tim after. Hey, this is a good time to hit a break. Let's do that.
Listen to us live anywhere in the world on the WBSM app. The Marcus McCarthy. South Coast Tonight is the place to react to all of the day's news and where they make some news of their own.
I've been in the right place.
Back to the talk now on WBSM.
Sometimes when I try to play a song, I do it on YouTube, and it's the music video, and so they have like dumb music video intros where it's like they're playing a scene out, right? And I just did that now. And
Santa
so,
making out with someone? What's going on in that YouTube video?
It's the NSYNC "Merry Christmas" song that I wanted to play, and well,
It's a little hotter than you thought.
Yeah.
it's a see.
Wow.
Yeah, but I had to fast forward
this
it.
is a throwback to my Attleboro High School days, seeing these guys up.
Yeah, I just thought, I tried. The point is I tried.
Yeah.
508-996-0500 is how you get in the program. Good evening, you're live.
Good evening, team. How you doing tonight?
Hey, Tom,
Joe,
what's
how
up?
you doing?
Yeah, regarding this whole down of DEP stuff, so far we have a mandate from an environmental agency, which is part of the cabinet, right? That's where the jurisdiction comes from. They're going to try to stick, just for the town of Dartmouth, the residents there, $70 million, right, to do their upgrades. And I think immediately there should be a court injunction regarding all of this. I think the proposal is so vague, they could force the people to spend $70 million, come back with a study a year later and say, well, that didn't work.
Exactly.
Let's make them pay for it.
Right.
Let them have egg on their face. There's no assessment on the agricultural, the golf courses, everything else that can cause this nitrogen. Even the CSOs in New Bedford is part of it. And, this has to be stopped. I know we talked earlier, Marcus, and you said that it may be the legislation. So what Montigny said tonight is going to be very important of him coming back on what they intend to do. But what bothers me the most on all of this is that subcommittee, and nobody can find out their names. They did it under the sheets. Nobody can find out who they are. And it's just horrendous to me. It's very similar to what they did to the fishing industry and the fines under Luchenko. Right. And once they lifted the hood on that to the Inspector General, largely through the efforts of former Mayor Lang, we found out what they were doing. They were still missing $45 million. Nobody knew what happened to it. And then they spent money on their own people.
Yes.
The judges, the attorneys. I mean, they bought 217 vehicles for the agency, and that was NOAA, along with all the pressure from the NGO. So this one's got me up in arms a little bit, and I think the first step should be an immediate injunction until they can get to the bottom of all of it. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, look, I think that Montigny is the last member of the legislature that they really want to mess with up there. He's forgotten more than most people know, right?
Right.
And he can really grind things to a halt for you if he wants. And I think the new governor is going to remember, this is happening under Baker as Baker leaves. But when the new governor comes in, she's going to have to deal with this.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Her people are going to have to deal with this. And I think Montigny will be right at their door.
This has been a huge issue in Rhode Island, too, where, especially in Warwick, the city of Warwick, where, there's the same issue. There's so much overflow into Narragansett Bay. Narragansett Bay's luckily been heavily cleaned up, but it's come at a cost. And they've slowly gone through Warwick. My wife's from Warwick, so I've heard a lot about it over the years, telling people they have to switch septic at pretty heavy costs.
Yes.
And it's constantly an issue at the State House about should we exempt somebody from having to do it? Should we provide more financial protections? Do we make this next neighborhood do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So it's a very challenging thing because I assume most of us don't want to be polluting, but how do you balance how much this could cost?
So thanks for the call, Tom. Appreciate it.
Yep. See you, bye.
Marcus, you had an issue you wanted to ask Ted about. Did I? The homeless being evicted from the State House.
Oh, yeah. So for people who don't know, there's a homeless encampment at the State House. And so
the Rhode Island State House, we should say.
The Rhode Island State House.
Right.
Not on Beacon Hill yet, although who knows?
Right.
It might be a trend.
That's a pretty Tony neighborhood.
And I think that, So I think that it's kind of like the point of it, right, is to like, hey, here's the issue. You're not doing anything about it. This is what is happening because you're failing to act. Is that kind of a correct assessment on that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the governor's team thinks that the advocates have encouraged some of these folks, if they have a choice of where to put their tent up, put it up out front and make it very visible to state leaders. But on the other hand, there is just zero doubt that homelessness is a big issue in Rhode Island, as in so many places, a growing issue, and there are not enough shelter beds. Kim had the head of Crossroads Rhode Island in Providence, the biggest homeless shelter in the state, on last Friday, and she said they're full already there's more people who need beds. And so, you've wound up with this issue where, the governor's sent out actually his senior staff last week to hand out eviction notices. Right. The ACLU and the advocates went to court.
For those of you who don't know, who don't watch Channel 12, it literally, they have tents set up.
Tents at the State House on the front, where you walk in. I have to say, I have little doubt that part of the pressure is they want this sorted out before January, when legislative session starts.
Right.
And because it's only a half-year legislature in Rhode Island, so they'll be coming back in January. Everyone will be up there with a lot of activity. And also, just on a human level, it's very cold, and it is not great to be sleeping in a tent. I think those people agree. But now it's become, there's an injunction in place. The people in the tents can't be removed through Monday, but no new tents are supposed to be put up. Governor's team said today they have found, shelter for all these people, but some have declined. Others are arguing, look, this is evidence that, there was a problem last year. There was a protest out front of the State House with tents to call attention to this. And people are saying, well, look, this shows after a year, they still didn't have enough shelter beds when winter hit. We knew it was a problem. They aren't prepared for it. But, as we were talking about earlier, it fundamentally, just like in Massachusetts, it's gotten just extremely expensive to find an apartment, let alone a house in Rhode Island.
Don't ask Dan McKee, because he doesn't know how much a house costs in Rhode Island.
He didn't have as bad as answers. Yeah, pop quiz really got them. It's you're just, it's just supply and demand, right? You're gonna, you have a certain number of people who want to live here and are around. You have a certain number of housing units, need to house them. If it's like musical chairs, if there's not enough, some people are going to end up without somewhere to live. And now you see it very visibly right now at the State House.
Right. 508-996-0500. Good evening. You're live.
Hi, I'm just calling to ask Ted a question. I'm just curious if he can confirm or deny the rumor that he is going to be returning to Attleboro to run for mayor.
I recognize that.
I recognize this voice.
I recognize that voice in the barking dog. That's my wife,
Marcus,
the future First Lady of Attleboro. No, I wouldn't want to be accused of carpetbagger after spending so much. How's a baby?
The baby is still asleep, but clearly the dog wanted to make an appearance on the radio as well.
Yeah, they should. Actually, you know what our dog's name is?
What?
Marcus.
No way.
He came with the name Marcus. We got him from a shelter, so it's a great name for a dog.
Yeah.
A human, not so much.
Yeah, these guys kept me late, honey, so it's their fault that I haven't been helping with diapers and stuff so far this evening.
No, it's been a great show. Really, really fun to listen to.
Thank you.
And
Thank
you, Kim. Just had to call in and make that joke.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So,
thank you, Kim.
Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. So,
she'd just like to move there because the taxes are lower.
So Ted,
there you go.
So, so Ted's here to announce that he's actually our third co-host. So he's going to be. He's going to be here the rest.
He'll be back tomorrow night.
Yeah, he'll be back tomorrow night.
I will say, radio. I don't put on any makeup.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
I don't have a tie on.
Yes, exactly.
You don't have to shave. I don't shave. Right.
Don't watch my weight. It's very good. I like radio.
Right.
All right, I got to take this break.
The WBSM app is...
Let's go back to the phones. 508-996-0500. Good evening.
Gentlemen.
Hey,
what's going on?
I heard my co-host job was up with me. What's going on here?
Sam, you haven't called in a while.
We're giving your job away. You don't show up.
Oh, man. No, I've been listening. Awesome show. I would like to see him part of the program once a month or once a week.
You for that.
Whatever you can do.
Yeah.
We got to ask my wife when she calls in again.
Sounds like she's all right with it.
Yeah.
No, so when I was just listening, sitting on the side, and I heard, we're going to make him a co-host. I said, wait, we can't do that.
Sam's our unofficial co-host.
Well, I don't want to take Sam's position, especially in the holidays. That's cruel.
That is
Scrooge-like.
Right.
I've been the unofficial co-host ever since it was unofficially published.
Well, I unofficially congratulate you.
And I unofficially accept. But no, awesome show tonight, guys.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it. Thank you. So I hang up with people mid-sentence sometimes. It's a thing.
You do. You do.
It's not intentional.
Rude,
I know.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Good evening.
Hey, I just want to add, seeing as you guys like the press room story so much, when I was in there in the 90s, the New York Times had bought the Boston Globe, and they really started putting the pressure on people. So people were getting disgruntled and pooping on the shower floor, and you got nicknamed the Mad Shitter.
I can't.
I don't think you're allowed to say that.
You can't tell that story on air.
I had to try. I think I dumped it, but I don't know.
No pun intended.
Are we on a delay?
No pun intended.
We are on a delay.
Yes.
We are on a delay, and there's a dump button
So I
here.
can swear too.
You can.
You could, just once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got my finger on the dump button.
be ready.
So, yeah. 1, 2, 3.
All right.
Make it a good one. Make it a good one.
Yeah, pick a strong one. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, 508-996-0500 is how you can join and have an FCC
approved conversation
with Ted Nesi, Chris, and I. We're actually nearing the end of the 9 o'clock hour. Ted, are you staying?
I should probably hit the road. Not to press my luck.
Once your wife calls, it's time to go home.
I'll be your co-host, but I won't be married.
Well, what's more important?
Right.
So, Ted, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
It's so much fun, guys.
Again, Newsmakers, which I always say I prefer the podcast, but there's a podcast. It's on every Sunday. It's also on Fridays as well.
It was for election season.
Okay.
We've lost that time slot.
Okay.
So it was a special occasion for the weeks leading up to the election.
But for our audience, you follow Fox News. Fox News Sunday.
Yes, we're on after Fox News Sunday on our Fox because Channel 12 runs Fox, what used to be Fox Providence, Fox 64, or it's now Fox Providence, it used to be Fox 64. So
I just listen to the podcast
everywhere.
so I can enjoy it.
You guys are everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so actually after the show, I watch WPRI.
Yeah.
I go home, I watch WPRI.
Yeah, come on, we'll be on at 10.
The show's actually giving me sleep deprivation, so.
Yeah, that happens. No, and I appreciate that. Yeah, and I'm lucky. I've been at 12 for 12 years, actually.
Wow.
And I never thought I would be there this long, but they really have invested in news at Channel 12 in a way that I don't think a lot of local TV stations have gotten, especially our investigative unit, our in-depth unit, what Tim and I do in our team, and my wife's show, which, brings in newsmakers, no pun intended, and stuff. I'm proud of the place. I really am. I'm proud to work there.
Yeah, it's a great station. I think you guys are doing a lot of great work there.
Absolutely.
And so I'm at this point now where I'm just like, we've still got a few seconds that I'm trying to fill, and
what do you hit?
I don't
You
know what to
30?
say. We can hit 30, but I've been told actually by my boss that actually hitting 30, they want you to hit 50. I hit 30 because the satellite kicks in. It has that kind of music.
Yep.
But he's actually saying you should actually go till 50. That